Awesome. Well, we will get this thing kicked off. And so let's start off with the leaderboards. We're going to do last week's, and then we'll actually cover last month's for January. So thanks again, Miss Allen, Miss Lord, for getting those over to me this morning. And I appreciate that. And let's take a look here. So for last week's production, first of all, we had a couple of new writers last week. And let me see, here it is. That's what I'm looking for, the second email. Couple of new writers, Mr. James Steckel, who's directed Mr. Brett Applin, and then Miss Janine Mitchell and Neosha Armstrong are both directed Mr. Jeremiah Nolan, all new writers last week. So great job for going out and helping some folks there in your first apps with us. If you can write one, you can write two, and if you can write two, you can definitely be successful in this business. So let's go back and do the top 10 here. So for last week's production, we'll start with production, and we'll talk by app. Then we'll go to app count for each category. So Mr. Bill Cullum, he had 2 apps for $1,121, directed Mr. Jeremiah Nolan. James Gerling, who had an app for $1,375, directed Mr. Jeremiah Nolan. Neosha Armstrong, 2 apps for $1,680, directed Jeremiah. Janine Mitchell, 3 apps for $1,713, directed Mr. Jeremiah Nolan. Man, you're killing it, Jeremiah. Great job with the team there. Then Jeremiah himself with 1 app for $2,440. Mr. Matthew Glass with 2 apps for $2,678, directed Jeremiah. Miss Stella Dinwiddie, 4 apps for $2,865, direct to Mr. Chris Menifee. Then Mr. Lionel Anderson, 4 apps for $3,018, direct to Brett Applin. Then number 2, David Tohill, one of our new guys as well, 4 apps for $3,229, direct to Brett Applin. And then in production last week, myself, I $10,084, direct to Mr. Chris Menifee. Then app count, we will go down to the top app count leaders here for last week. We have got, let's take a look here. Let's just do these for you, because you had Miss Janine Mitchell with 3, then Miss Stella Dinwiddie with, Stella Dinwiddie, Lionel Anderson, and Mr. David Tohill all tied for second place with 4 apps each. And then myself with 12 for this last week. So great job on everybody that went out there and helped folks. And then we'll also cover the base shop production for the AOs. Myself, Mr. Chris Menifee, and Jeremiah Nolan for last week. Chris, his base shop had 7 apps for $3,890. Mr. Jeremiah Nolan, 11 apps for $11,007. And myself, 22 apps for $17,664 for last week. We will go down to the leaderboards for last month, for the month of January. And starting production, let some folks go out and write some business. Absolutely, outstanding job there. So let's start with production there. Top 10 here. At number 10, Terry Myers, directed Chris Menifee for $7,656. Bill Cullum, directed Jeremiah Nolan, $7,919. Mr. Ellis Hubbard, $9,403, directed Mr. Brett Applin. Ms. Jennifer Baker, $10,544, directed Mr. Brett Applin. Brett Applin himself with $16,715, direct to myself. Ms. Donna Bates, $24,895, direct to Spencer Cushion. Mr. Jeremiah Nolan, $25,389, direct to Mr. Chris Menifee. And keep in mind, Jeremiah was also in Cabo for the trip that we went on, so outstanding job there. Then myself, $26,110, direct to Mr. Chris Menifee. Number 2, Miss Stella Dinwiddie, $27,740, direct to Mr. Chris Menifee. And number 1 for the month of January, coming out of the woodwork, no stranger to being in the top, Mr. Spencer Cushion with $33,979 in APV, direct to Mr. Chris Menifee, just short of $34,000. Great job there. I will cover the app counts, and we'll start with, for January, Mr. Brett Applin had 15. I wrote 20 apps. Donna Bates had 23. Mr. James McKeon, who just started and he's working full-time at another job, trying to come in part-time, and only ran a handful of appointments, 4, I believe, last month. He wrote 25 apps in 4 appointments last month. Great job there, Mr. McKeon, new writer. Jeremiah Nolan had 26 apps. Spencer had 28, and Stella Dinwiddie 38 applications in the month of January. Phenomenal job to all those folks and protecting so many families. And then the last category is the base shop production for the month of January. In the agency, Mr. Jeremiah Nolan, his agency had 42 apps for $41,643. Myself in second place, 84 apps with $84,036 for the base shop production. And then Mr. Chris Menifee, base shop production, 108 apps for $105,521. So great job to everybody. And those were a roll-up of the entire team's production there in the base shops. So outstanding job to everyone. So solid week last week. And then, of course, a solid month in the month of January. And we got a great start here to February. So good stuff. All right, so let's move on over to the topic of the day. So real quick, before I move into that, Chris, was there any other housekeeping issues or things that you wanted to cover for the team that are just general notes for the group collective before we started in? I think we're pretty much caught up there, right? Okay, good. So let's talk about, my topic for today that I wanted to talk about was really game planning with your mentor for success, and what that means. And you know, what I want to make sure we're doing and folks are buying into is the importance of accountability, the importance of writing your goals down and sticking to those and having an accountability partner. And so we talked, I think the last time I hosted the call, I want to go back and look at my notes, but this particular call, I believe that we were talking about goal setting and such like that for 2020. And we talked about some things, and some of you have already done that, right? And we'll reiterate some of those things now. Some of you haven't. So this is a reminder for those individuals who have not done so, but also to validate those who have already done, who already have, but then following that up with a few other things to really lay the framework for success in 2020. So one of the things we talked about before initially is certainly goals. You have got to write your goals down. Make sure those are written down and you have those clear and concise of what you want to accomplish for not only this year, and break that down into smaller chunks, maybe by quarter or month or even weekly or each day. So it's making sure that you're sticking to those disciplined routines on a regular basis that will ultimately get you where you want to be at the end of the year. If you just get up every day and kind of wing it, trust me, think of it this way, you're going to be off course. So let's say we start at this point, right? I'll face the camera this way. We start at this point and we're early in the year and our goal is here at the end of the year where we want to be. If now you're just slightly off course, that doesn't seem like we're too far from our goal, right? But if you continue to go that same path as time goes on, you start to build a divergent tangent that gets you further and further from your goal. And you'll find yourself at the end of the year not understanding why you weren't there. But if you're here and you're able to course correct and come back in line, you're going to be much closer to your goal, even if you start to get off kilter a little bit each day or each month. But you might not realize that if you're not working directly with your mentor, right? And so what I mean by that when I say mentor is this, is depending on who you're direct to within the organization, right? Some of you may be direct to somebody that's brand new, and that's fair enough. But when I say a mentor, I'm referring to one of those individuals on this call who is an AO, meaning myself, Chris, or Jeremiah, or key leader, meaning Brett Applin, or if you've made team leader yet, right? So there's some team leaders on this team as well. So that's what I mean by your mentor. It's okay for you to talk and bounce ideas off somebody who brought you in this business if you're both new. But I mean, in reality, they can be a sounding board for you, but I don't think they would be able to provide as much guidance and as much insight as somebody who's further down the path on this journey, because they've accomplished team leader, key leader, AO, or something within this organization. That doesn't mean that they might not have good advice, but I think you would serve yourself well to make sure you're working with one of those other leaders that can help you as it relates to this business, because they've been there. You know, they've gone through a lot of the challenges, they've experienced adversity, those types of things, and I think they can better assist you with making sure that you've got the right plan in place and to give you guidance on a regular basis. And quite frankly, some folks on this call, and if you look at the leaderboards that I just called off, and they're not all direct to me and my organization clearly, but I could probably go through there without even talking to Chris or Jeremiah and tell you who's regularly connected with their mentor, right? Just because of their production, their success, and how well they're developing here. There's some folks on this call or that were on this call 3 months ago who aren't around anymore. Maybe didn't follow the program, thought that they could do it on their own, or they weren't engaged, they weren't immersed in the opportunity here. And as a result, it's too easy to get off track and lose focus and have a frustrating day or a challenge, and then run off to the next shiny object because you think you live in a bubble and the challenges and frustrations you experience regularly are isolated to you. Get over it. It's not. We all experience. We all go through frustrations. We all go through challenges. We all go through adversity, bad days. We all go through different things that we overcome, right? And that's why if you'll notice a lot of times on the group meetings, Jeremiah and myself, you know, we don't just post up about the sales and the successes that we've had. Those are great. But there's also, hey, I also got no-showed. I got porched. I had 8 appointments on the day. My entire day fell apart, right? Because we want you to know, and I apologize in advance for my allergies with this weather. It's been beautiful here, then horrible, then beautiful, then rainy, and probably the same where you're at too, right? But the point is, we've all been there. And if you don't have an opportunity to talk to somebody who is successful with this business that can tell you, hey, I understand. Hey, I've been there. Let me tell you about this time that I had the same situation, and this is what I did, overcame, and this is what I did, or I had to overcome. It gives you that strength to understand that somebody has been there and has overcome it in spite of, and can share that story with you to give you that secondary strength and that anchor for you to be solidified in your commitment here, and to know that it's not easy. It's simple, but it's not easy, and it is challenging, and we all go through that. So my point in saying that is that the closer you are connected with your mentor on a regular basis, that's a direct indicator as to your success in this business. I can look back on the 18 months that I've been here, and I can tell you and look at the folks in my organization who are connected, who call me on a regular basis, who stay engaged, who let me know what they're doing, how they're dialing, the successes, challenges, and they're communicating with me on a regular cadence. The success of those individuals and the folks that came in here and either were too prideful, they didn't think they need to contact me and call me because they figured they would figure it out on their own, and they didn't want to be embarrassed to share with me that they were challenged in a certain aspect, and they figured they would just overcome it on their own. And then those thoughts start to get in your head, and very quickly you convince yourself that this isn't a good fit for you, and it's too easy to run off somewhere else, right? Because people, you've heard me say this before, most people will never become who they say they want to be because they're too attached to who they've been. But they're not willing to open up and be vulnerable to folks to ask for help and guidance in this business. And I want everyone on this call to understand that we all want you to be successful. We all want you to find your dream and achieve your goals in this business, but we can't help you if you are not engaged with us. And what I mean by that is this. As leaders, we have a lot of people in our organization. We're constantly interviewing, adding new folks and such like that. And let's face it, not everybody's cut out for this business. Not everybody's going to make it here. But what we want to do is focus our time and energy on those folks with a high propensity for success, who are committed to this, and that they are dedicated to this being their dream, those are the people we want to pour into, because there's only so many emotional units in a day that we have to exert, with folks, in addition to running our own business and our own appointments and our own challenges and frustrations. And we want to make sure that we can focus on the people who need it and deserve it the most. And the quickest way for you to self-identify in that regard is for you to step up. You have to step up to your mentor and say, hey, this is what I'm committed to. This is what I want to do, and follow that through with actions, right? Actions are what we do. Everything else is just talk, right? And we've got to be focused on being committed and intentional in what we do in regards to that. So does that make sense? Right? So starting with goals. I mean, in order to win in this business, you need a plan, right? I don't care what it is. You've got to write it down and have a plan. And you've got to have a vision board of what you want to accomplish, right? The things you want to do, where you want to go. I've already updated mine from the last time we talked, right? Before, on my vision board, I'm looking at it here. On my vision board, I had the flyer for the Athens, Greece trip for American Amicable. I did that, took it down. Now it's Buenos Aires, Argentina. That's their trip for this year. It's up there in its place now. So that's my next goal for that particular, objective of mine. And it's up there. I see it every single day, right? So having a vision board, I've done that since I was a teenager. And I think I shared that on the call last time when we spoke but you got to do the same thing, right? And believe it, see it, and know that that's what drives you every single day. And let that be your driving force in your actions every single day and what you do. So writing those down and communicating those goals with your mentor, right? Also having a schedule and sticking to that schedule. Those of you that were on the call with Miranda Martin yesterday, I won't go into too much detail there because she killed it on that call and was awesome about schedule and how important that is. So definitely want to reiterate the importance of that for you as well. And you being intentional in your actions every single day. It's too easy to get distracted, but you've got to have a schedule and be focused on what you want to accomplish, because any journey that you go on begins with one step at a time. And you got to crawl, walk, run in anything that you do. But understanding what steps you have to take today in order to set you up for tomorrow and the future is very important, in having that roadmap. Back in the days when I was younger, we used to have, obviously, the Rand McNally maps. You'd have to fold and stick in your glove box, right? If you want to see where you're going. Now, of course, we have the world in our hand and a smartphone and navigation. But still, even if you want to find some place you've never been before, you're going to look up the directions and follow your navigation, right? So how do you expect to get to your goals personally if you don't have that same roadmap? Your vision board, your goals being written down, your connectivity with your mentor, and that communication with your mentor is the same thing as Siri giving you turn to the next left, the Smith Street. Those are the directions that you're getting from the navigation that you would get from your mentor on a regular basis. You wouldn't turn on the navigation and mute it and it just drive to where you're going to go and not look at it and expect to get to where you want to go if you've never been there. You're going to look at that navigation on your screen. You're going to listen to the directions. And that's the same scenario as you communicating with your mentor. They are your beacon. They are your lighthouse, because they have been or where currently they're at where you want to go, or they've been where you're going. So lean on those folks. That's such a huge part of this business. That's just amazing in the way we work with folks to help them get where they want to go. We want our people on our teams to get where we are faster than we did. That's the only way we get where we want to go, is by helping other folks fulfill their own dreams. But we can't want it for you more than you want it for yourself. Be clear about that. And I'm not chasing anybody around. I don't have time for it. There are too many people that want this, that need this, and are engaged and committed to it. Those are the people that get my attention. And I'll pour every ounce of my being and spirit and soul into those folks. Folks that don't call me, and I have them on my team, they don't call, and some of them, they aren't here anymore. A lot of them, most of them. And that's okay. That's what this is about. So if folks don't step to you as a mentee, your mentor can't call and chase you around to help you be successful. That's something I can't do for anybody. I can't want it for you more than you want it for yourself, period. But we are all, as leaders, committed to giving everything we can to those folks who step up and profess it and stick to it and are disciplined to it. You're going to get all of our undivided attention because you deserve it, not the folks that aren't engaged. Does that make sense? And it may hurt some folks' feelings on the call, or I mean, it is what it is, you know. But other folks that are engaged are appreciative of the fact that we're focusing on them because they're the ones that deserve it. Period. You know, I've said this before, and it's just so true in all businesses, but specifically with this business, is most people come into this, they see the kind of money that can be made, the organizations, and in the long term, forever, you know, income and, you know, freedom financially and all that stuff. And they want to be in the result. They want to be Marshall Whalen. They want to be, you know, pick your Jacob Pogue, pick your leader in the company. They want to be in the result now, instant gratification. They don't want to be in the process. They don't want to be dialing Friday night and Saturday mornings. They don't want to go out and get no-showed. They don't want to deal with interviews, and they don't want to deal with folks not sending their packets back in. And so they don't want to do that. But you have to, because people want to be in the result and not in the process. But in this business, it's in the process that determines who deserves to be in the result. Let that sink in. We're not asking you to do anything that we don't do on a regular basis, right? But we want to help give you guidance to make sure you stay on course. And some people are more challenged. We all have our strengths and weaknesses, right? Identify those weaknesses where we can help support that and encourage and continue to foster and cultivate your strengths. But we won't be able to do that if you're not stepping to the plate and saying, hey, I want to do this. I want to do what it takes. I want you to pour into me, right? So vision board, being intentional and communicating with your mentor on a regular basis. But again, we talked about solid structure and I would say regular one-on-ones with your mentor as well. Now that may be weekly, that changes to maybe bi-weekly or monthly, depending on your stage or where you're at. But I would suggest, and sometimes it's not necessarily a full-blown 30 or 45-minute conversation. Sometimes it's just a text message just to keep in the loop, so you keep that line of communication, to make sure that folks are able to give you that input if needed. But that regular communication should be established so you guys are on the same page, and gals, right? But that accountability is also there. So the goals that you've professed that you want to accomplish, your mentor can help keep you focused on that. Some of us need that accountability partner to make sure that we stay focused on what we want to accomplish. And if we're off course, somebody to kind of kick us in the butt and say, hey, dude, what the hell are you doing? Right? And it's not to belittle anyone. You told me what you want to accomplish, right? And sometimes it gets tough. It's challenging. And that's what I meant by earlier. If you don't communicate with your mentor, you run into some kind of challenges and obstacles and frustrations, and then personal negativity set in, and from your family or your spheres of influence, and you let all that stuff build up. Sometimes people can crumble, and they lose focus on what they need to do. And it's a compounding effect to where they ultimately don't get where they want to go because of the fact that that they think that they're isolated and they're in a bubble, and they think that they're alone, right? And what they're going through is all it's woe is me, right? It's not woe is you. We've all been there. Let us talk it through. I want to share with you a story when I went through the same thing. This is what I did. And when it's easy to be at conference or to be on a national call and hear some of these folks who have tremendous success stories. And the thing I love about this company is folks are so transparent and so vulnerable about where they've come from and what they've gone through, to get to where they are. But even then, when you look at where they're at and their success and their production and such like that, it's easy to think, oh, wow, that's amazing. But you weren't there on the nights that they wanted to quit. You weren't there when they got frustrated. You weren't there when they had their lights cut off because they had to buy leads instead of paying their light bill. You weren't there. You don't know that. So stop acting like you do. It's not all roses and glory. Those people fought and stuck it out to be successful here. And everybody's story and journey is different, right? But the point is, the folks, if you listen closely, you'll have folks tell you that are equity partners in this company, hey man, there was a time early on, man, when I couldn't figure this out. I couldn't sell. I didn't have any recruits that would stick, and I was done. I was about to walk out of the door. And then I talked to my mentor, and that person saved me from myself and got me to stick around. And I don't know what I would do without that conversation. That one flipping conversation kept them here versus going out the door because they didn't talk. They were too prideful. They didn't want to reach out, and they just vanished into the ether. It's important to stay connected with folks that can be a positive force in your life and be that anchor for you to keep you focused, is my point. Okay. Also part of that, I say game planning with your mentor, but also plugging into the system. If you are not on the national calls on a regular basis, and you're not on these team calls, or if you're part-time, you're working during the calls, it's understandable. I've got people on my team that are in that scenario, but they definitely go back and listen to the call, and they listen to the recording later on. And not only that, but they text me and say, hey, JP, just want to let you know, after I got off on my drive home tonight, I listened to the call recording today, Matt and Brad Smith. Awesome call, great points. I took a couple of notes, awesome stuff. They're still letting me know. I didn't necessarily speak to that person. They're running in a different lane because they're trying to come in, and it happens on a regular basis, but they let me know that they did it. So I'm not wondering, hey, who actually was on the call today and who wasn't. They're letting me know that they were on. Those are the people I'm going to commit to because they're communicating with me, right? Because I'm in the loop because they're keeping me in the loop. So being on the calls and also listening to the recordings on the SFG homepage is very important too. There are a lot of great information. There's a lot of great information on there by some very, very successful and phenomenal leaders in this company about a variety of topics. And the beautiful thing I love about this company is it's all archived in a repository. It's all there. Go back and listen to it. If you have a specific subject, talk to your mentor. Go on. They may have one in particular. In fact, Stella, I saw in the group the other day, I think it was you, that somebody asked about something. You actually not only made a comment and said, hey, go listen to this, but you posted the link on it. I love that. You know why? Because she's doing it. She listened to it herself. So she can provide that same guidance to somebody else who needs it. That's just amazing. I love that, right? Talk with your mentor and use those resources. In corporate America, they don't have those kinds of things. They don't have all the calls recorded from other speakers from years and years ago. And some of them are just as true today as they were, 3 or 4 years ago. And you don't have to wait and have your mentor sit down on an hour-long call and teach you about that or tell you about that. You can self-educate by following up and using those resources yourself, which will help you to feel enabled and empowered to be in control of your business, right? So making sure you're doing it and being honest with yourself, making sure that when you look in the mirror, you know what you're doing every day. You know what you're committed to. You know how close to your goals you are. You know if you're actually accomplishing those and achieving the objectives on a regular basis or not, right? We're not with you 24 hours a day. We know what you communicate with us, but you have to be honest with yourself because ultimately you are responsible for your own success and destiny in anything you do. So make sure that you are committed to yourself first and foremost, okay? We talked about obstacles and challenges. I'm just looking at my notes to make sure I don't leave off any important points here. But the underlying point here is making sure that you are engaged with your mentor, that you are connected with Symmetry as a whole. Danny Young is one of my favorite people here, and I've only met and talked to him a handful of times. But if you've been to conference, that dude is a hoot. He is an old Cajun from Baton Rouge, and I love him. He's just hilarious. And he said one time, he said, It's not good enough for you to get into symmetry. You have to get symmetry into you. And some people may think that, well, that's a little over the top and so on, but it's not. It's about culture. It's about the vibe and the feel and the support and the love and the connectivity and the synergy that we have. Just as important and the same as when you're in a toxic corporate environment where that eats at your spirit and holds you down and makes you feel downtrodden, and where you can't accomplish the things you want to accomplish because of the negativity and people around you. That's the same situation. It's called culture. It's the environment that you're in. And that's what he means by that. It's absorbing the environment. And a lot of times people will find themselves in that negative environment and wash out, quit, go find another job, whatever situation may be. Here, we have just the opposite, where it's complete positivity. And I think, and as I sit back and reflect sometimes, I think that's part of some people's problems that don't make it here. I think that it kind of catches them off guard a little bit, and they're not used to that because they're so used to being in a negative environment and where folks aren't supportive, that they see what we do here and who we are and our culture. And I think it startles them and it scares them to the extent that they're not sure if it's real or is this a little weird or what. But people say they want to be around positive influences, right? They want to be around folks that have their best interest at heart. But you got to surround yourself with people on the same mission as yourself, right? And I share that on the GroupMe on a regular basis. But if you look in your spheres of influence, and I'll tie this to your personal world or that negative, toxic corporate world. If you look around yourself and you're not inspired by the people around you, you don't have a circle, you have a cage. You've got to get the hell out of that. But then when people see something like this and who we are and how supportive we are and want to help one another, they want it so much that when they find it, that I think some folks might not believe that it's true. And that's okay. But those of us who have been here long enough know that it is in fact real. And I've got as accurate a BS meter as anybody in the world. And I can promise you, if this wasn't real, I wouldn't be on this call right now. I'd have been gone a long time ago. So it's real and it's genuine, and folks really want to help you, but we can't help everybody because some folks don't want to be helped, right? Some folks say they want it, but they aren't really willing to put in the time, the commitment, and the effort, not only to start on the path, but as soon as they experience some kind of challenge or adversity, they're willing to fold up camp and pack it in and go home because they don't have any grit. The folks that are going to be successful here are the folks that have grit. And if you need to learn how to find grit, if you don't have it, if you haven't had that experiences in your life to give you that innate fight and desire for success, that's even more reason why you have to plug in with your mentor, because they can share some of theirs and help you get through it, because we're all on the same team and we're all rowing in the same direction. And through those challenges will enable you to find your success, right? And I'm going to defer to my in fact, I changed it because I put a new quote up there, but I'm actually pulling this one up here because I actually put a different one there. But this is one of my favorite ones that I've shared, and I'll read this to you as well, and I'll share it on the GroupMe a little bit. So for folks that are having challenges or have been frustrated and such like that, this is so meaningful. One day you'll tell your story of how you've overcome what you're going through right now, and it'll become part of someone else's survival guide. Think about that. And that's what your mentors have done. Your mentors have gone through these challenges and are further down the runway, so they can tell you and give you guidance from a survival guide, direction from a survival guide perspective to help you navigate those challenges in your own world to help you find your own success, right? So, yeah.
Still going through them, right? There's always challenges.
Yeah.
They just change. They're different,
That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And to that point, there's still times, but I appreciate you saying that, Jeremiah. And you got to be smart enough to identify that and know, because the challenges and frustrations that I have now are not the same as when I first came into this business, right? and they're always going to adapt and change. And so that's why I was so grateful when we went to Cabo, to have a chance to have just one-on-one time just to talk with Chris and Jeremiah, and our organization, Scott Mank, to pick up bits of knowledge and information from those folks. But having a chance to be, shoulder to shoulder with Jacob Pogue and Marshall Wayland, on that Friday morning after that breakfast when everybody left, and he spent 45, 50 minutes with Sandra and I just sitting there after breakfast on the balcony there outside with a view of the ocean and stuff. And I was just making notes feverishly because he was pouring into me things that I need in my world now to take me to the next level of what I want to do. So you're exactly right, Jeremiah. The challenges change, and I still have frustrations on a regular basis. All of us do. We just have to be smart enough to know when to plug into our mentors to get guidance and input, and that doesn't necessarily mean that we might not be able to figure it out on our own in due time, but at what cost, how long does it take, and, how much does it set you back versus reaching out to one of your mentors who's been there and done that, getting that information and applying it to your business real time and mitigating the cost, learning curve, timeline, and those things, because you can find out what they've done in the past to give you that guidance and implement it. And I do that to this day. And I know Chris does and Jeremiah, and that's important. The challenges are just different now. And some of them are the same, that are constant no matter what. But the focuses are a little bit different as you get further along in this business. But that, again, is why it's so important to plug into your mentor, because these people have gotten where they're at. Marshall Whalen and Jacob, equity partners, and, folks that are 110s. If I want to make it to be on my run to 110 by the end of the year, I want to hear from these folks of what they did and where I'm at, analyze my business, tell me what I need to change and improve, because I want to get there. And you have to be smart enough to listen and be coachable. And that's what this business is about. The mentor-mentee relationship is, I think, overlooked far too many times, and just how important that is. But come full circle to the point I made at the beginning, it is your responsibility to connect with your mentor about what you want to accomplish in this business and stay engaged, not just once, but on a regular basis. Now, I don't mean that you call them and ask them the same question 6 times in a week. That's not what I'm talking about. But I'm saying, get information from them, learn how to fish on your own with referencing the sales support teams at the carriers and underwriting and those kinds of things, so risk assessments, all that stuff. I'm talking about staying plugged in about where you're at, what you've accomplished, checking it off. One of the things I like to do personally is on my to-do list, I write them out, and I'll show you. I mean, obviously I have my calendar, but I write these things out of what I need to accomplish today, tomorrow, and I don't know, it's just weird maybe, but I love scratching them out. I love just crossing them off to know that I've done them, right? Maybe that's just me. I'm OCD like that, I guess. I like marking them off because it shows my accomplishment. I can visually see how many of those things I've knocked off, right? But again, not asking you or giving you advice to do anything that we don't do ourselves, right? It works, trust me. So, I think that's really the main point that I wanted to get across today, was just engaging with your mentor and staying engaged on a regular basis, and them helping you to stay accountable to yourself for what you want to accomplish in this business. So anything else you'd like to add on there, Chris or Jeremiah, before I open up to questions?
No, that's perfect. I mean, as you were going through, there was, I was jotting down some notes, and you're absolutely right. As far as, the tough thing about this business is, it's not the tough thing. That's the crazy thing. It's not tough at all, but it's the consistency part of it. So what you brought up is, and I'll have somebody reach out to me. Hey, I'm struggling here. Great, let's work on that. We put together kind of an idea, a game plan, and then I don't hear from them. They disappear for 6 weeks.
Right.
And then nothing happens, or maybe something happens and they start nosediving again. And I don't know, and I hear it too many times. It's like, well, I don't want to be a bother. I don't want to be, you guys are busy, yada, yada, yada. The problem is that's not how this works. That just absolutely is not how this works. It has to be, across the board. The people who have done the best are the ones who light up my phone the most.
Right.
And it's you, it's Jeremiah. You guys as agency owners. Probably if I were to look back at my call logs, would probably set the record on, the number of times that I got calls. And so there's a direct link between the amount of time I spend on the phone or in a call or in person or whatever, with somebody, to how successful they are in this business.
Right.
And so, regardless of where you're at, that, guys, it kind of almost seems too simplistic and silly. That's kind of, if you want the secret sauce, that's it. If you're not where you want to be in this business, then you need to look at your phone, look back at the last time you called your mentor. If it's been over a week ago, probably if it's been over 2 or 3 days ago, but let's say, hey, maybe you're well established but you haven't talked to them in a week, and maybe before that it's a 4-week gap. There's your problem. There's your problem. If you are not where you want to be and you are not keeping in regular contact, and for everybody, regular contact is a little bit different. For some people it's many times a day. For some people, maybe once a day, a couple times a week. Doesn't matter. But if you're not doing it at least every week, there's your problem.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Exactly. Jeremiah, did you have something you wanted to add on there, brother?
No, I think you hit it nail on the head. It's one of those things that we, especially the ones that are running, we want to help, but we don't always have the time to be reaching out to you. You can't, we always have time to answer the phone. If we've got folks that are really plugging in and following the system and doing what's necessary. That's what it's all about. But that's I understand it can be a struggle sometimes. I can struggle sometimes doing that, but it is the difference. So you hit it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. And you'll find the further you get down the runway on this thing with your learning curve, the less frequently that might have to be. Early on when you're first just getting going, you might call that person a couple of times a day. Hey, what do I need to do this? Hey, I didn't get my logins. So you understand that's early on, but as you get further down the runway, then that cadence will change because you're going to learn how to be independent and self-sufficient. But even when you have figured out how to do things on a regular basis, that you still want to stay connected with your mentor when you do run across challenges or obstacles. And sometimes it's just to be a sounding board because you had a shitty day and you need somebody to vent to just to keep your sanity. Look, it's not always easy. You drive all the way across town and spend 2 hours in traffic and drive 114 miles round trip to somebody's house that you just talked to and told them you're on the way, and they said, okay, I'm here, and you drive your ass all the way over there and they're not around, they don't answer their phone, you bang on the door, there's 2 cars in the driveway and the hood is still hot, so somebody just pulled the damn car up, but they won't answer the door, and you're texting and calling. You don't think that's frustrating? Trust me, it happened to me the other day. Big deal, right? But so don't think that when you go out and it happens to you, woe is me, right? What's wrong with me? Why can't I figure this out? Get over it. It happens to all of us. You just don't hear us tell those things all the time, but I'm here to tell you live, in living color, it happens to all of us. And the more appointments you run, the more successful you are, the more production you put up, the more frequently it happens. Think about it. Because you have more appointments, you have more sales, but that means you have more appointments that had an opportunity to cancel, reschedule, no show you, port you, whatever. No sales, whatever. You think of how many people last year that I had that canceled, no show. I don't care, because those aren't the people that I'm doing this for. My focus is on, yeah.
Hey, this is Spencer. How are you?
Hey, Spencer, how you doing, brother?
I thought I'd just share a wonderful talking moment. Had 11 appointments this week, 8 canceled. Sat on 3. Sold 0. Yeah, it happens.
Right. Absolutely. But you know what you do? You dust yourself the hell off and you get right back in the fight. Period. That's what you do. Stop boo-hooing and stop being on an emotional roller coaster up and down every day or every week or from an appointment to appointment. Be more even keel with your emotions, because that's what wears a lot of people out in this business. Not the fact that you got no-showed or then you made a good sale. It's that you go, if you can't take it personally. Exactly, Julia. Exactly. I saw your comment. You can't take it personally. They don't know you, but you can't let yourself in the situation or scenario dictate your emotional state. And what happens is you go from top of the hill because you made a great sale, or one day have a solid day and the next day you get porched and no-showed or they canceled or whatever, and then you let yourself go in the dumps and try to figure out if you should even be here. And then the next day you go up and you had a monster day. You are wearing yourself the hell out. Period. Stop it. Stay even keel. That's what's going to run you out of the business, is yourself, because you've got to be more, you have to have a stronger foundation. You have to be grounded in your emotion and not get too high or too low. I mean, I say that all the time, and I heard somebody here at Symmetry say that when I first came in, and it's just stuck. I mean, it's something that I've always adhered to in my career, but that's just a great way to define that. Don't ever let yourself get too high or too low. And if you are feeling a little bit low, reach out to somebody who can boost you up. Somebody can help keep you grounded and pour into you. If you don't have that grit in that moment, and you don't have that fight in you, and you feel like you're having second thoughts or doubts, reach out to your mentor, because we have enough for all of us, and we'll pour right back into you to keep you focused on what you need to do so you can stay at it and let you know you're not alone in this fight. And that's the importance of staying connected with your mentor. Any questions from the group? I'm going to give us a couple of minutes here just in case folks have any questions on the call. Bueller?
Hey, John Paul Vetter.
Yes, ma'am.
You're so awesome. I just love listening to you. And
I appreciate you.
Just fill my heart, and it was awesome.
Thank you.
So you remind me of, Brian Tracy, in that No Excuses. He
Exactly.
talks about what you said, how, in the journey of whatever craft or career path that you are trying to do, he said, you think of it as like going on a vacation somewhere. If you go to a place that's unknown, you're not, you usually want to go to like a person that's already been there, and they see it and they can tell you where to go and so forth. But if you just go out there by yourself and you don't ask for any help or direction or anything, you can feel really lost.
Right.
And so that just reminded me of that, what you said. And I just wanted to tell you that that was amazing. I loved everything that you said. Thank you very much.
I appreciate you, Stella. And you're doing a great job. You are a perfect, shining example of what it takes to stick it out and be successful here. Start off with tons of challenges and not really understand how to do this, to be in the position you're in now. I'm phenomenally proud of you. You are killing it, ma'am. And your messaging, support, and spirit on the group me is self-evident. You are a rock star, but you have a tremendous future here in this business. And I couldn't be more proud of you myself. I wish I would have met you and interviewed you instead of Chris there.
Well, thank you. I get to learn from the best, so thank you.
Absolutely. Outstanding. Awesome. Anybody else? Awesome. Well, I guess, Chris, if there's nothing else that we have on the call, a little bit early on the call, but it'll give folks some time to go ahead and get out there. Make sure you have all your leads for the day. And if you don't have any leads fresh, go back and get you some more. Be ready. That's it. Be ready to get on the phones this evening and tomorrow. Carve out that dial time. Don't let anything interfere with your ability to get on the phones and line out your week next week. Appreciate all of you all. And listen, good luck, good selling, and have a great day and great weekend on the phones.